Hi. So I just downloaded Maya 2022 and started to update all of my code to work with Python 3. Now I wanted to walk through what my process was for updating my code so that it would be reverse compatible with Maya 2020 and before with the Python 2.7, but then also be able to continue working with these newer versions with Python 3. And this is not a comprehensive guide for how to update your code. And I don't have a huge number of scripts and code to go through. So this won't work in all cases. I just wanted to show what my process was, what the issues were that I ran into, and how I solved them. So here is what I ran into. So one thing that I do as I'm developing is I reload my code, and this no longer works in Python 3. This method of reloading. What you have to do now is you have to import lib, and there is a function in there called reload. And import lib does exist in Python 2, but it does not have the reload function. So you have to use a different version depending on the version of Python you're in. So what I ended up doing to solve this problem was to write this very simple function that takes a list of modules and it will reload based on the version of Python that you're in. And I'll walk through that really quick. But I wanted to first say that one thing that I end up doing that I find helpful, which does not have to do with the version of Python I'm in, is just this dev mode setup module that I have. And what this does, it's a very simple module that all it has is a global variable that I set to true when I'm in development mode, and I'll set it to false when I'm not, and I'm just working, and I don't need to reload code because it hasn't changed. So reloading code can be very slow. That's when I'm not actually developing, there's no need to reload. And what ends up happening is I pass it a list of modules. It'll verify that it is a list, and if not, it puts it into a list. It'll check the version of Python, and in this case, we have this sys.version info, and that will return all the information about Python. I only care about the major version right here, so if we run this, it will return, in this case, 3. In older versions of Maya, it will be 2. So I'm checking, am I in version 3 of Python? And if so, I want to reload this dev mode setup to determine whether or not we are going to actually reload. And I check to see what its value is. And in this case, I haven't actually. So if I run this, then it will see, it's true. Or force. There are times when I want to reload things every time, whether I'm in dev mode or not. So I've added this force keyword argument. So if either of those are true, then it will reload. It'll loop through all the modules that I passed it and reload them the Python 3 way. Otherwise, it'll do it the Python 2 way. So that's all that this function is doing. And let's see. Yeah, so that's how I solved that one. The next was a very common problem, which is the print statement. So this is how I had print statements in Python 2.7. I don't use the print statement a whole lot, so it didn't show up a lot in my code. But where it did, I just converted it to the Python 3 way, where you just add the parentheses around what you're printing. It works in both versions of Maya, both versions of Python, I should say. And so I just updated all of those, and then that didn't cause any problems. The other is the data types for base string and string. So not to go into what this actually does and what it means, I needed base string in a few places in my code, and string didn't cut it. String is a subclass of base string in Python 2.7, but in 3 string handles everything that base string used to, at least according to my understanding. So because I needed base string in some of my in some of my code in Python 2.7, I only had it in like 3 different modules, and so this is what I ended up doing. Again, I use this checking the version of Python, and if I'm in Python 3, I just set the base string. Basically, if it's in Python 3, base string looks like an undeclared variable. That's the error you get because it no longer is a keyword. So I just set it to string, and then that fixed all of my code. I did some testing, nothing broke. So this has been my solution. And then so that was that. And then the last one is long versus int. This is another one I didn't look really deep into. This only showed up once in all of my code where I was using long. I guess, again, int handles everything that long used to. And I don't know why I was even using long in my code, but I switched it over to int and everything worked just fine. That may not work in all cases, but for what I was doing, it worked just fine. So anyway, those were all the problems I ran into. And hopefully some of that will help you. I know that there are more issues that came up, that will come up, such as xrange. I don't use xrange, so it never was a problem. I know that that is no longer in Python 3, and I'm sure there are solutions for that. And there are other things that will need to be looked into. So hopefully this helps, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks. Bye.